Hey everyone, welcome to the sew along for the Terryn T-shirt pattern. Lovely quick pattern, fast to sew up, great for learning all your beginner knit sewing things. So let's get started. Alright, so here's your pattern pieces. You'll have a front piece, a back piece, two sleeves and a neckband. It comes in two different lengths, but construction is exactly the same for the two different lengths. This is actually a size 2 with a size 4 length, so if the proportions of your pattern pieces don't look exactly the same as this, that's absolutely fine because this has been altered to fit the person that it's for. Also, all the instructions for doing that, if your intended wearer is not a standard size, are in the pattern. Alrighty, I've just prepared my pieces ahead of time by pressing up the hems on both the sleeves and the bottom. This is not a necessary step. You can do this later when you want to sew the hems. I just find it a bit easier and faster to go through the pattern if you press this up while your pieces are flat, and then it's easier to fold up later on when you're up to sewing the hems. The other thing that I do is with the neckband piece, you see like this, I've pressed it in half too, so that when we sew it this way, it's easier to fold back on itself because there's already a pressed line there. All right, and so let's get started. First thing to do is take your back pattern piece and your front pattern piece, put them together right sides facing. So it's pretty hard to tell on this fabric. It'll look, probably through the camera, looks exactly the same on both sides, but take my word for it, this is the side that's going to end up on the outside, so the right side here, and this is the wrong side. So first thing we're going to do is line up the shoulder seams, just like that, probably a bit more accurately once I get to the machine. And then you can pin those or use clips or whatever if you like, but then just sew along both of those. If you're using your sewing machine, you're going to need to use a stretch stitch, or otherwise just overlock along there or serge. Yeah, if you need any details on the types of stitches you can use for sewing knits, or how to do hems or neckbands or anything like that, any more detail on any of the steps in this pattern if I don't go into it. So, sorry, just waiting for the helicopter to go over there. Okay, let's try again. If you need any details on the sewing knit fabrics, the types of stitches you can use for sewing your seams, how to sew hems, how to sew bands, any of those basics, if I don't go into them in enough detail for you here, I'll link some tutorials that I've done previously down below that goes into more detail on a number of different options for doing all of the knit sewing stuff on your sewing machine or on your serger or overlocker. Okay, let's get started. I'll sew these ones. Okay, so there's that. Shoulder seams are sewn, and the next job on the list is to take your neckband and fold it in half this way with right sides facing. Again, hard to tell. This is the inside and that's the outside there, and just sew along this end. Okay. So now we've sewn along the end there, and we're going to fold this along our pre-creased line back on itself. Like that. And that's the neckband. Right, now we're going to put the neckband into the neck hole. And to do that, what we're going to do is just divide the neckband into 4 equal parts. Divide the hole into 4 equal parts, and then pin the corresponding points to each other. Alright, so you start with centre front and centre back. this, so you line up the shoulder seams like that. Mark your centre front and back. And put your centre front and back together. Walk the edge of the fabric out till it matches up, and that's how you get your other quarter points. Alright, so we've got our quarter points marked on our t-shirt and our quarter points marked on our neckband. Yeah. Now this t-shirt's inside out, neckband's got the right side out with the open edge facing upwards, and the join on the neckband is at the back there. So here's the back of the t-shirt, the back of the neckband, and pin those two together. Then work your way around, pin the next point on the band to the next point on the t-shirt. The band's slightly shorter than the neck opening of the t-shirt. That's deliberate. You just gently stretch the band to meet the neck opening as you sew it together. But don't stretch the neck opening out, or the whole neckline will end up a little bit wobbly. Alright. So there we have the 4 quarter points pinned or clipped. Should you wish, you can add another pin in between each one. To make it easier. And then just serge all the way around. Notice you've got your 3 raw edges together, the 2 raw edges of the folded neckband and the raw edge of the t-shirt or the bodice part. Alright, so just around there. Okay, so there you go. The neckband has been sewn. The next step in the pattern is to top stitch the neckband, but because I'm doing hems later on that machine, I'm going to do all the top stitching at the same time, and that's not a problem with this pattern. There's nothing that we won't be sewing over that, so we can do that at the end, no problems at all. Alright, next is we're going to put the sleeves into the arm size. So open out your main piece, your bodice, with the right side facing up. Then you take your sleeve piece. The sleeves on this pattern are symmetrical, so you can just pick either one, no problems at all. But just pick one, match up the center of the sleeve, and match that up with the shoulder seam. So you've got the right side of the sleeve facing the right side of the bodice, and we've got it matched up at the shoulder seam. Pin that there, and then pin or clip, obviously, each end to this corner here. So just, hopefully you can see what I'm doing there. Match this corner of the sleeve up with that corner there, like that. Then I normally put one more clip in between. Because this is a drop shoulder t-shirt, the arm side is pretty much exactly the same length as the top of the sleeve, so you don't need to ease it in at all. It should just match up pretty well. If you just line up the edges, shouldn't have too much trouble with it. So there you go, sleeve into the arm side, and do the other side. Alrighty, then sew that seam on each side. Okay, so now we've got our sleeves sewn in on both sides, and it's side seam time. Right. So still inside out, so right sides of the fabric facing. Line the seam up from the hem through the armhole right to the cuff here, and then sew that seam all the way down. Just make sure you line up the seam at the underarm. And do that on both sides. Okay, so we've sewn down the sides and we have essentially got our t-shirt. While I was at the machine, I also overlocked the raw edge along the bottom hem and around the sleeves. This is not compulsory. Knit fabric does not unravel or anything, so you can just fold that up and with no overlocking, and that's absolutely fine. I just do that because I like the look better. Yeah, so then all we need to do now is go over and do the bottom hem and the side hem. So we've already pressed that, so it's easy then just to fold it up along the press line and top stitch the hem in place with any stretch stitch on your sewing machine, or if you're lucky enough to have a cover stitch machine, you can do it on there, no problems at all. You obviously won't need the overlocking if you're using your cover stitch machine. So, oh, I forgot, I hadn't mentioned to you, you will have noticed that there was a little dog leg here on the end of the sleeve. Don't cut that off, because as you can see here, the sleeve is on an angle down that way, and what that bit does is accommodates that angle when you fold it up. So you can see there then that there's that extra fabric length in there to accommodate that slope, and then it's not going to gather your sleeve up when you hem it. So that is the next thing, both sleeves and the bottom hem. Now, something that I occasionally do that you can do if your fabric is like a little bit overly stretchy, not very stable, or if your sewing machine is enthusiastic and it tends to stretch things out and make your hems wobbly, what you can do is use this stuff, any hem webbing, looks like this, and you can stick that in between there like that, press it down, and then when you sew it, that is just a little bit firmer and doesn't stretch out and do so much wobbling. It stays in the hem permanently, but it doesn't stay firm or anything, doesn't make it overly firm or weird after it's washed. It just stabilizes it while you sew it. And so if you are, that's just a little tip, if you're having any trouble getting your hems on knit fabrics to sit flat and not do that wobbly thing where it all stretches out, that is something that you can do to counteract that. So I'm going to go ahead and iron some of that into my bottom hem and my sleeve hems, sew them on my sewing machine with a twin needle. I'll be back to show you the finished project. Actually, something that we also skipped earlier is top stitching around there. So at the same time, I will use my twin needle to top stitch this overlocked edge down here. So I will, let me just show you. I will go all the way around the neckline, just below that seam line there, catching that seam allowance so that when it gets washed and worn, it stays sitting the right way around. All right, and there we have it. Top stitched around the neck, all the hems done. You can see that. And that is the finished Terryn T-shirt pattern. Like I said earlier, if you need to have any details, extra details on how to do seams or hems or bands, different stitches you can use on your sewing machine, anything like that, I will put a link in the description to a little mini series that I did a number of years ago on basic knit sewing stuff. You will probably find my on-screen persona really quite annoying in those, but the information's still good. Alrighty, thanks for sewing along.